Hello, and welcome to the Meditation Center's monthly metaphysical lesson. This month, take a journey with us and learn to follow your star. Today's discussion is based on Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, which reads, After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. And so it reads. Do you follow your star? During the Christmas season, we often hear the story of the wise men and their journey of following a star across the desert to reach the place where Jesus was born. The story is recounted in various ways, with added and sometimes conflicting details. That the star was in the east, which strangely is in the opposite direction from where the Magi were traveling. That there were 3 wise men who had specific names and who were kings, each from a different Middle Eastern or Asian country, and by some accounts from Egypt, which is in the wrong direction. The story in the Bible doesn't include all these details. It just says that they were Magi, or wise men, and that they brought 3 gifts. And their journey and their gifts will be the inspiration for our lesson today. So often we get caught up in the energy of the world, news, politics, misinformation, financial challenges, family conflicts. It goes on, and the more it happens, the easier it is for us to start taking on the energies of those situations. We become angry, bitter, or frustrated, which sometimes leads to decisions that might not serve our highest good. I was thinking about this one day recently, and the story of the wise men came to mind. The wise men saw a bright star in the sky and undoubtedly began to contemplate what was happening. In today's world, if something like that happened, it would be all over the news, and people would be speculating about alien invaders and missiles and conspiracy theories and more. But back then, all they had was their trust. They knew that something unusual was happening and set out to investigate. They trusted that the light would guide them to something good and uplifting. They trusted that they would be safe traveling over expanses of nothingness through the desert to get to their destination, wherever that happened to be. Through their intuition, they knew that the star was a sign welcoming a new energy into the world in the form of a child. As the story continues, when the Magi set out on their journey, King Herod heard of their mission and asked them to report back to him, under the guise of wanting to honor the child personally. In reality, the king was jealous and worried that the rumors of a new king would diminish his power. Wisely, the wise men moved on. They found the star again and followed it to Bethlehem, and came upon the child and his parents in a stable. They presented gifts, honoring the child's new journey toward Christ consciousness, just as people shower a new mother with gifts today. Remember, these were wise men. They not only knew how special this new arrival was, but they also knew that the king's intentions were not good. When they left, they followed a different route to avoid the king on their journey home. And all was well for now. This is a magical story about a magical event that probably didn't happen quite the way it was described, if it happened at all. Legend is that the story of the virgin birth has been borrowed from other cultures from earlier times. It may also have been embellished to glorify the man Jesus, to elevate him to higher spiritual status. Whether or not it's a historical fact is not as important as the lesson it teaches us, just like every story in the Bible. So let's look at the story metaphysically. The wise men represent the stored-up resources of our soul, which rise to the surface when its depths are stirred by a great spiritual revelation. The men in the story were stirred by the revelation of a new presence in the world, just as we are stirred when we discover an energy of hope, harmony, or encouragement in our lives. The wise men were confronted by King Herod. Herod means son of a hero, the ruling will of the physical, the ego in our sense consciousness. Just as King Herod fought to maintain control of his power over everything that happened in his kingdom, our ego likes to be in charge of the things we experience in ours. The wise men were following a star that appeared in the sky. The star represents our intuitive nature, trusting in divine order. Energies of light are a common theme during the holidays. The light of the star, the candles of the Hanukkah menorah or the Kwanzaa kinara, and even the lights we put on our Christmas tree, all evoke an energy of love and higher energies that are uplifting to our soul and combat the darkness we often perceive in our life. The wise men were uplifted by the inner knowledge that something good was about to happen. We can trust in our own light of intuition to bring good into our lives. The star took the wise men on a journey to honor the birth of Jesus. Jesus is our spiritual awakening, the recognition of the I Am identity within us. It's the part of us that rises above earthly challenges and inspires us to keep an even mind, even in the most difficult situations, with hope and integrity. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, in Judea. Judea is a place in our consciousness of praise or spiritual recognition. We find spiritual peace when we can go to a place in our consciousness where we are comforted and uplifted, even when our world may seem bombarded with challenges. Bethlehem means house of bread or house of sustenance. It represents the solar plexus chakra, the source of physical intuition and wisdom that protects and sustains us. The solar plexus is where the stomach is located, where food, the substance that sustains life, is processed. Bethlehem in Judea represents a union of love and wisdom, and Christ consciousness comes forth in substance or in physical ways. It is this energy of love and wisdom and spiritual recognition which fosters the birth of Jesus, our spiritual awakening. Jerusalem, where the Magi first arrived, is a place of peace in our consciousness. Jesus' mother was Mary, the feminine, the soul, the phase of affection and emotion in our being. Her husband was Joseph, the state of consciousness in which we increase in character along all lines. It is our sense of responsibility and honor. Mary, a consciousness of affection and love in our soul, paired with Joseph, a consciousness of character, helped to bring forth Jesus, our spiritual awakening. When the wise men arrive, they present 3 gifts, all of which have a spiritual connotation. Gold represents the riches of spirit, frankincense, the beauty of spirit, and myrrh, the eternity of spirit. When we rise above our challenges and follow our own star, we grow to realize the riches, beauty, and eternity of our own spirit and our connection with all that is. When we remain in this consciousness, we can achieve anything we want to. As we explore these various roles in the story, we begin to see that it isn't about a baby born to an unmarried couple in a barn, with people mysteriously showing up from faraway places to shower him with riches and praise, and an evil king plotting his demise. The story is about our own spiritual journey, where we can begin to exercise power over our situations, and that we can achieve spiritual riches and beauty and eternal happiness by following the light of our own star and trusting that all is in divine order, whether we can see it or not. Earlier this week, I was listening to an old radio play about another notable person following a star. The story chronicled the life of Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten and his wife Nefertiti more than 1,300 years before the time of Jesus. Even though it takes place in a different time and situation, I noticed how well the story fits with our lesson today. Akhenaten was a gentle soul and didn't believe he was equipped to take over as pharaoh after his father died. Upon taking the throne, his first rite of initiation was to spend time alone in the Hall of the Gods, a huge room far below the surface of the earth, lined with stone statues of the Egyptian gods. It was here that the Pharaoh could take time to contemplate and receive revelations on how to set aside his doubts and become the best possible leader, much like Jesus did for 40 days in the wilderness. It was a vision quest of sorts. Akhenaten didn't believe in the multiple gods that most of the people of his time worshipped. In his imposed solitude, he called out to those gods, demanding answers, telling them that if they're real, they will reveal the answers he needs. His frustrated, angry voice vibrated through the hall, causing the statues to shake and collapse. Now shrouded in dust and darkness, trapped in a cavernous underground room, he didn't know how to get out. He kept his cool, and after working his way through the rubble, he saw a light which helped guide him out of his unexpected tomb. From there, he emerged into the daylight of the surrounding desert. This event further affirmed his belief that the worship of multiple gods was all a lie. He focused his attention and adoration on Aten, his god of the sun, as the source of all that is light and good, the source that led him from his dark, stifling underground confinement. Akhenaten is considered the first major leader to abandon polytheistic philosophy, which is belief in many gods. As king, along with his queen Nefertiti, he began to travel from town to town, trying to convince his people that they should shed the darkness of their lives and focus on the light of one god, Aten. He discouraged war and fighting and encouraged people to live from a place of kindness. He wanted to build a city where everyone would be free from poverty and inequity. Despite his passion, his effort wasn't well received. His soldiers defied him and continued to defend the country against intruders instead of welcoming them. People who firmly believed that they were doomed to a life of poverty and misery laughed and threw rocks at him, thinking he was crazy. His enemies plotted ways to overthrow his reign. The story goes on from there, but the point is that he trusted in the light of the sun, a star, as his source of inspiration for love, kindness, and harmony, much like the Magi following the star to find Jesus, a similar representation of love and kindness. Most of us have had our Akhenaten moments, where we were ready to give up on the things that we've been taught because they just didn't seem right. We've all had our Herod moments, where our ego has tried to guide us down a path of selfish desire instead of meditating and following a path of what is right and true. And we've all had our Magi moments, where we trusted in goodness and allowed our own internal navigator to help us do what is right, despite what others might expect or think. It's not always easy, but it feels good and right when we do. And when we do, the gifts are far more rewarding than anything that can come wrapped in a box lying under a lighted tree or carried on the back of a camel across the desert. It's the inner gifts of love and harmony that shine from within, like the halo often depicted on images of the baby Jesus and other holy figures. That experience is the gateway to spiritual awakening, when we realize that material things are just things, and that nothing can really harm us unless we allow it. Today's world is an ecosystem of this dynamic. So many people are like those of Akhenaten's time and have lost faith in humanity, the government, and qualities of goodness. They can't see any light in the darkness of their situations, so they act out in frustration, often rejecting things that might help them rise out of their challenges. In their minds, they feel like they've tried to trust in what's right, but they also feel like they've been burned or forsaken too many times to keep trying. So instead, they choose to rebel. They allow their Herod consciousness to take over their thoughts, telling them all of the things that could have been different, all of the things that they could have if they would just put themselves first and forsake everyone else's needs. But then there are those who continue to have faith in goodness. They pursue what is right and fair, even if it doesn't please everyone, and even if it sometimes seems like there isn't any hope. These are the magi of our world. They trust in the star that reminds them that no matter how frustrating or discouraging life might seem, we always survive it. Even when times seem like a barren desert, they quietly plod along, carrying with them the gifts of love, light, and peace, knowing that something better and inspiring lies waiting for them on the journey ahead in a place of peace. Though there are often conflicts between our Herod and Magi energies, the wise men of this world manage to steer clear of the drama and quietly do their work to overcome selfish desires and the ills of society, and somehow we persevere. We have a choice. We can embrace our inner Herod, the jealous, controlling nature of our ego-based thoughts, or we can be like the Magi and follow the star, the light of reason, love, and inner guidance that expresses in and through us, not just at Christmas, but any day of the year. The choices we make determine the quality of the journey we're on. Life isn't about excesses of wealth or money at all. We don't need to be a king. We can seek peace and happiness despite our situations. As the birth of Christ consciousness renews in you, trust and follow your star. May this star guide you to fulfilling and peaceful places in your consciousness and bring the riches, beauty, and eternity of spirit that come with it, not only during this holiday, but always. Merry Christmas. Namaste. For additional lessons and meditation ideas, visit our website at www.meditatewnc.org. Thank you for joining us.